This is the front page of the American Weekly Mercury, printed in Philadelphia on April 28, 1720. The reports arriving by ship this week track four major developments: the finalization of diplomatic treaties in The Hague, massive state infrastructure funding in Europe, severe royal justice in Vienna, and an active military siege in the Bahamas. To reconstruct the geopolitical friction of the era, we will read directly from these colonial dispatches, using the exact text that informed the public 3 centuries ago. The physical layout of the broadsheet reflects the chaotic speed of 18th century information. Reports from The Hague and Havana are packed together in dense columns, separated only by brief datelines without headlines. For a citizen in 1720, decoding these global events was a requirement for survival. They had to weigh the news of a European treaty against the reality of Spanish warships in their own hemisphere. The first dateline brings us to The Hague on February 20th. Ministers from Great Britain, France, and the Emperor have signed the convention regarding the Treaty of Quadruple Alliance. The dispatch calls this very great affair mostly happily finished. However, the same page reveals underlying religious tensions within the Prussian borders. The King of Prussia has threatened to close all Catholic chapels within his territory unless Protestant grievances in the Palatinate are addressed immediately. Great Britain, France, the Emperor, and Prussia, the dispatches show a dense web of alliances and threats moving simultaneously across the continent. These high-level diplomatic maneuvers and religious ultimatums formed a fragile peace that dictated the overarching stability of the European powers. In Paris, the focus shifts from diplomacy to the immense financial resources required to maintain the state. A report from December 21st confirms a major leadership transition. Mr. Law is to be appointed High Treasurer of France. Meanwhile, the States General has agreed to lend East Friesland 600,000 florins for urgent infrastructure repairs. The text identifies the cause as a terrible inundation of the sea, which broke down vital banks and dikes. This intervention functions as a sovereign bailout, using central state funds to rescue critical provincial infrastructure from the aftermath of a natural disaster. Projecting imperial strength depended on deploying massive capital for internal stabilization, just as much as signing the Quadruple Alliance. The Vienna, December 13th dateline shows the imperial court turning its focus towards severe domestic justice. The court first details the degradation and 2-year imprisonment of the Count de Nymphe. But the primary scandal involves the elaborate case of the pretended abbot Tedeschi. Tedeschi was convicted of forging an imperial bull and publishing libelous material against the court in an attempt to extort money. His punishment was brutal, standing in the pillory for 2 hours, receiving 30 lashes, and eternal banishment from the hereditary dominions. To ensure the punishment was public, the state physically, quote, nailed to the pillory his forged and intercepted letters. The imperial court used these public spectacles of physical destruction to reinforce its absolute authority over the domestic population. Despite the diplomacy in The Hague, military movements continued in the Mediterranean, with Spain mobilizing forces toward North Africa. 2,600 men and heavy artillery have been deployed to reinforce garrisons against the King of Morocco. But for the readers of the Mercury, the most pressing threat appears in the New York newsblock. A Spanish fleet out of Havana, carrying 1,100 men, attacked the island of Providence, but was driven off by bad weather. That same fleet is now regrouping in Havana to launch a second attack with a reinforced force of 2,000 men. The local defense is outnumbered. Providence is bracing for the assault, with only 700 men and 70 guns. The dispatch remains resolute, noting that the man-of-war Mary will assist, and that the colonists intend to defend themselves gallantly. A failed attack, a massive reinforcement in Havana, and an island garrison preparing for an inevitable second strike. This sequence shows the disconnect between European policy and colonial reality. A treaty signed in The Hague did not stop the Spanish from launching a 2,000-man invasion in the Caribbean. This single edition of the Mercury tracks a massive geographical arc, from the seats of European power to the islands of the Caribbean. It presents high-level diplomacy alongside public lashings, and French state wealth alongside colonial sieges. While the Quadruple Alliance sought a formal end to hostilities, These dispatches show the lag between a signature in The Hague and a ceasefire on the colonial periphery. The newspaper serves as a raw data feed of an empire attempting to manage chaos across multiple fronts at once. For the colonial reader, understanding these global geopolitics was a vital requirement for anticipating the next strike on their own borders.
The Daily